reasons Mills College girls... Well, look at this, Paul. This is the very thing I was talking about earlier.
Just mentioning this.
Top 10 reasons Mills College girls do not want men attending their school. Here we go. Number 10. No more going to the library topless. Number 9. Annual production of Chekhov's Three Sisters replaced by 3-day Stooge-a-thon. Number 8. Football team has a perfect 0-452 record. Number 7. Guys often whoop and holler when words like breast appear in sensitive poetry. Number 6, there's going to be some loser named Ned that keeps asking everyone out. Number 5, they might try to free the men we use in our science projects. Number 4, we're shy. Number 3, afraid cafeteria walls will be covered with Dukes of Hazzard posters. Number 2, less beer for the rest of us. And the number 1 reason Mills College girls do not want men attending their school, they tend to spit a lot.
Mills College was a wonderful place. It was a very exciting place to be around and to be aware of the world for the very first time. Through the teachers, through the events. Yeah, it was very, very exciting. My time at Mills was a time of camaraderie, a time of development, excitement, and growth.
I was just a nerd, and I just wanted to go to school and do my studies. And I was an athlete, and I just wanted to do that. I didn't want to have to worry about what I was going to wear. I didn't want to have to worry.
I went to class in my pajamas in the morning.
Yeah.
I threw a trench coat on. You know, we had that ability to just be very earthy and relaxed. High school was all on appearances. At Mills, because there were no men around, you didn't worry about appearances, and you could concentrate on the things that were important to the development of your mind, your soul, and your curiosity.
What Mills does for us is it helps us find our own voice, find the best way for us to be in the world. I wanted to figure out who I was, right? I just wanted to be me. That's why I chose Mills.
I think something like 60% of women in Congress at that time had come out of women's colleges.
I'm glad that men were just on the peripheral as you could see them on the weekend. I'm glad they weren't a part of my intellectual world.
I don't know what the essence is. I know what the mission is. I know what the vision is. But I think the essence of it is, it's about women.
Well, the essence of Mills is a place for women to explore their potential, to be educated in a safe and supportive environment, and not safe in the way that they are protected, but safe in the way that there are fewer barriers to their discovering what they're capable of in terms of great faculty and research and resources and all of that.
I think I just have to do Laurie completely. And I want to add that the essence was to have an educational learning space and experience for all women. LGBT, people of color, and you know, that's the essence. That all women can be in one place to get that experience to become who they're going to be in the world.
What it gave to me as a person to stand on my own and not necessarily go with the status quo, and to know that my thoughts have value, and I have value.
You could ask questions. You could talk about things that were important to you. You didn't have to censor yourself first.
This is what Mills does for us. It helps us find our own voice and find the best way for us to be in the world.
I feel very close with Mills people. When practicing law, I came into one of the judges' chambers with a legal question, and I saw on the wall that she had a Mills diploma. Oh my gosh, immediately, she was like, there was my sister.
The year I graduated was the year of the Rodney King verdict in '92, and I had to do my presentation to graduate. Like, I had to do this. And the day I was doing my presentation was the day they were having this big protest, and like one of my best friends called me, she said, "Pamela, we're going to protest. Are you coming?" And I said, "I gotta do my presentation, but I'll call you when I get finished." And they did, and I told John Harris is my advisor, I had told him that I wanted to go, and he said, "You should have told me. I would have let you out."
A woman, she came up to me and she went, "You went to Mills?" She goes, "The woman who had the most impact on my life was a Mills alum." She didn't go to Mills, but because she had the one experience of knowing this one woman who was so vibrant and intelligent, and you know, that was very moving to me.
I happened to see this on Nextdoor yesterday. There were like 70 comments on a post that a man had put on saying how much he and his puppy love walking on the Mills campus. and he had a video of Richards Road and the eucalyptus and other things. But there was this response from the community that reminded me that Mills, it has an importance not only to alumni, students, faculty, administration, and staff, but in the community as well.
Yeah.
So I would want students to, or future generations to know that, as the chaplain said when I was at Mills, it really is the magical madness of Mills.
Well, we started telling people in the fall of that academic year that something was going on. We had it in issues of the weekly throughout the year. And people said still said they had no idea that this was going to happen.
It was very interesting to have been so closely associated with Mills, and yet to have been so far removed. And all this really important stuff was going on. I began to get a sense that something had changed.
So there was this suspicion it was all window dressing.
Warren, in addition to the rest of the board, wanted to make a decision that would keep Mills going. They wanted to make a decision that would allow the current students to be able to continue. They wanted the staff to be able to be employed. They wanted to provide security for the faculty.
I was trying to do my job, but it was important, I thought, that I not be the man rushing in to save the day.
There were three main committees that were formed by the president at the time that were dealing with, the issue of going co-ed. One was a committee that was supposed to collect evidence and make the argument that we should go co-ed. The second one was going to make the argument that we should stay women's college, but get larger, find a way to grow. And the third committee, which really kind of dissolved pretty quickly, was a committee tasked with arguing to stay single-sex and get smaller. Nobody seemed to like that idea, so it came down to those two committees.
I remember being at an art opening, and some guy came up to me and says, "Why don't you want men here?" And at that point, it was very easy for me to say, this is not about men. This is not about not wanting men. It's about the value of an all-women environment.
What is the competitive advantage that this institution had? I did a lot of soul searching, and the singular thing that Mills was capable of producing that no one else could was women leaders.
Dear members of the Board of Trustees,
Good day.
To the members of the board,
The benefits of studying at a women's institution are innumerable.
Because of my experience at Mills, I am better equipped to deal with the rampant sexism in Oxford, a university where men outnumber women 2-1.
I came to Mills a lamb, and I'm going out a lion.
you must understand that Mills is not only educating North American women, but also international women. As a woman born and raised in Guatemala, I speak from a standpoint of a woman from a male-dominated society where we are taught to follow man's orders and where we are oppressed and not allowed to speak our opinions.
I have become a leader because I have been taught to see the educational and personal rights of women as fundamental, a view not instilled in many of my British and American counterparts. I implore the board to keep Mills a women's college.
now, on the eve of graduation, I have successfully shed the lambskin and now wear the mane of a lion, accompanied by the roar. I have shed my husband. I glow. My enthusiasm and intelligence burst forth with every breath and every word. I am alive.
Once we come to Mills, we realize we are not only born to raise children and to be housewives, but that we are also human beings equal of treatment and recognition. At Mills, I have grown into an independent, empowered, self-confident woman, have held leadership positions, and have been given the respect I deserve.
My confidence in my academic performance was instrumental in my being accepted to study with Dr. Nagami. So far, I am the only non-matriculating Oxford student he has ever accepted, as well as the only woman.
It has been a time out from the sexist world where I was valued for how I looked, for how I didn't think, for how I didn't speak out or challenge power holders.
It is a disgrace to think of all those international women who would be deprived from benefiting from the Mills experience if Mills were to turn into a co-educational institution.
Remember who you are and what you represent. For more than 130 years, Mills has been producing women just like me. Women who have been taught to maximize their potential. It should stay that way.
After all, given the opportunity, what woman does not want to be empowered? What woman does not want to lead a self-determined, fulfilling life? What woman would not trade a lamb's skin for a lion's roar? I say every woman would.
Sincerely, Nancy M. Chaikin, Resident Assistant in OM, International President, Mills Ambassador, Business, Econ, and French majors.
Kristen Schnepp, Jr., Mills College. Majors, International Relations and Philosophy.
Sincerely, Jennifer G. Strong.
Ultimately, if you're concerned about it, you're going to have to do more than just write a letter to the Board of Trustees. 'Cause that's what we were all told to do. If you wanted it to remain a women's college, write a letter, right? So we brought in all of our colleagues and comrades, and we gathered in the basement of Haas Pavilion and said, look, they're going to do this if we don't do something about it. We need to say loud and proud why it matters that we're a women's college, because that was a thing. We had taken it for granted. We didn't know how to articulate why it mattered. We didn't even know where to begin with how to articulate why it mattered. But suddenly we were like, wait, why does it matter?
So, out of those kinds of conversations came things like the Hawk-A-Thon and the painting bed sheets that hung on the outside of the window, out of the dorm rooms, and all over campus. And that kind of started the ball rolling, that they could have a voice in this, that they could make a difference. Whether or not the decision got changed, at least they would have a voice.
Being coaches in athletics, we're always leaders to the students. But they play the game, we don't. So we're really just guiding.
What we realized was that we needed to get ahead of this to make it very difficult for the Board of Trustees to make that decision.
The Hawk-A-Thon was the very first event, and we stood at the gate holding signs, Hawk here for women's education. You know, that kind of stuff.
I was out there with a megaphone, and I was determined to be part of this. I was a coach. I was proud of, I wanted this place to remain a women's college. I valued what we had in our department and across the college.
Almost every car that went through there honked, so you realized that you weren't alone in what you were thinking for one thing. Well, you could protest. Yours is just, okay, well, felt good to do something versus just, well, okay, didn't go our way, too bad. Well, you could protest that. Okay, let's protest.
I received a phone call the day before the announcement was going to be made, and it was a call from the president of the college. She had never called me, ever before, and she called me directly to let me know that if I went up to the microphone after the announcement was made, my job would be in jeopardy. And I hung up the phone, and I thought, well, that pretty much tells me what the decision is going to be. I was freaked out. I mean, I wasn't so much scared as I was just amazed that somebody felt so threatened by the volleyball coach. It was very weird.
When the announcement was going to happen, they said they would ring the campanile. It was so eerie. I can't remember how many times they rang the bells. It felt like we're going to a funeral or something.
It was so stupid of them. This is how they made the announcement. They rang the bell to call everyone to the quad. This ominous ding, ding, gong, gong. We're all there. We're all there.
In order to admit men,
but will emotion make a difference here? No, says the president, it will not even her own.
So when this announcement was going to be made, the whole college just came to a standstill.
The announcement came and it was like a death. People screamed. I can't describe how awful it was.
It was a really surreal scene. And people were crying and screaming, and people were yelling, and there was all sorts of wild stuff.
I remember them turning their backs, tears running down people's faces and stuff like that. It was so heartbreaking. That was a dagger in the heart kind of moment. You knew at that point everything was gonna be different, right?
It was painfully gorgeous. It was painfully gorgeous.
It made news internationally. all over. Look at these women that are scared of men. But that's not all we did.
I was actually interviewed by a news station because I was crying.
I don't think anybody really believed that was going to happen. And there was this tremendous disbelief and then shock.
At that time, people understood how special it was, how different it was, how supportive it was to women's education. And to have that finally be gone?
A few students went up to the microphone after the announcement was made to say,
We're going to take this campus!
then whoever it was pulled the plug on the microphone.
I was very upset. I was sad. I was sad. I was horrified.
It was emotional, and it was horrible.
The students kept screaming and called a meeting for that night for the nonviolence training. And little did we know that by the next morning, they would have blockaded all of the buildings on campus, except a few.
Women's education for the next generation! Women's education for the next generation!
Women's education for the next generation! Women's education for the next generation! Women's education for the next generation! Women's education for the next generation! After the shock wore off, it was like, okay, what are people going to do about that? Staff were expendable, and that's when points were told, we're expendable. We're being told, you need to stay in the background.
They didn't understand that first we cry. First women cry, and then we get it together and we start activities. We start doing what we need to do.
This is about women in all our glory. Sexual orientation, race. This is about women in all our glory. So even though people might have been mad, I think knowledge really is power and it allows for understanding. And maybe if they would have talked to the student body and said, these are the reasons we're doing this, instead of, May 3rd, we're going to Hawaii starting fall of 1990. So you want us to be on board, but you don't want to include us.
We're a Latina family, and you know, we grew up sort of traditional, respectful of our elders, and mindful of the things that we do. But protesting was different. Everybody planned on turning our backs on the president if she announced that she wanted to go co-ed, but it was still personally hard to do.
Personally, it was hard for me because I've been called a cautious radical change agent.
Well, it's so tempting to paint people as black or white, good or bad, you know, Bert is so this way or the other. There's no gray area in the middle, but we're all in the gray.
I think that shook us all up deeply, and also brought a lot of attention to the seriousness of the financial situation there. I think it made us a little scared. I was mortified. You just shudder at the thought of it, and it makes you want to do something to change it.
The women of Mills are not going to accept co-education without a fight. By blockading entrances to the school's classrooms and administration offices, students simply shut down the campus. We have effectively blocked every single area where any business would have been conducted.
Hundreds
co-education. Trying to send a last-minute signal to the Board of Trustees. The principal argument being that men would change the nature of the school and be intimidating in the classroom.
That we will transfer if they do not reverse the decision, and that we will never support the college. We also have a petition for alums and people who are graduating this year who will be alums, and they also are signing saying that they will not support financially or otherwise. The students have the support of the alumni and faculty, but even some of them doubt that Mills will stay all women.
I support the students in their distress, but I'm afraid that this decision is not going to be reversed.
Mills College President Mary Metz, whose campus residence was one of the buildings blockaded by the students, held an emotional dialogue with them this afternoon, reiterating that declining enrollment and financial problems were behind the decision to go co-ed. I tried to raise extra money. I proposed all kinds of combined strategies that might have made it possible for us to remain a women's college. Students who felt Metz had betrayed them turned their backs on her.
You lied. You said a week ago that you were in favor of Mills remaining a women's college, and then you voted the different way.
I don't think I ever lied to you. I was fighting for Mills to be a women's college through last weekend. So you can see they are protesting. They say that they will continue. They hope that the Board of Trustees will give them a response by Monday.
An announcement from strikers. A quick note about the strike. There are many things which you may do to make this work. Not all of involves civil disobedience. Please come to the student union to find out what you can do. Furthermore, there's a manual available explaining civil disobedience at that location. Please understand, being arrested for civil disobedience is just a misdemeanor, similar to a parking or speeding ticket. Please observe the strike.
They made an announcement, but within a few hours, the students had shut down the campus.
Now it was basically a strike to shut down the administration, and it was very successful. I remember thinking the students just ran rings around the administration. They were ready, they were organized, and they jumped into it with gusto.
So there were students in 7 different locations on campus, and whenever they needed to make a decision about what would come next, they sent runners out to the 7 different locations. This is before we all had cell phones.
I thought Mills was a women's college. It was when my mother went, when my aunt went. It was a part of what Mills was and why I wanted to be there. And it helped me develop my own self.
I remember calling my parents, and I was really, afraid to be so outspoken, and we were trained on civil disobedience and not being violent and just standing our ground in a peaceful way, but I actually was worried that I might get arrested. I didn't know how President Metz or Board of Trustees would react.
So we were doing things like providing art supplies, for student activities or whatever, or giving them time off if they needed to have a poster night. I mean, I'm not going to say I was unbiased. I certainly was very passionate about Mills at that time.
It was amazing what they had done. I mean, they didn't destroy the campus. If they put, I'm sorry, it's somewhat emotional. They didn't paint anything. They used chalk for their signs, or put up butcher paper and put designs on those. But they would not destroy the campus.
I didn't want Mills to go co-ed. I had a great experience as a woman, on campus, and felt that it really was the right place for me at that time.
They just didn't want to have, we'll call them boys, they just didn't want to have boys in their classes with them. They liked being empowered in the classroom. I did my research about going to a women's college versus a co-ed college, and there's just this implicit bias.
We weren't warned. We didn't know. I think that if they had had some discussions with the student body, like, this is where we're going and these are the reasons we're going there, there might not have been a strike. But we had no idea.
I don't recall being shocked. Being a women's college was the most distinctive feature we had. Good liberal arts colleges are not hard to find, and to just be another good liberal arts college?
Two, to graduating seniors from Comic-Con Senior. Our society works on the reward and punishment system. If a citizen is good, he or she is rewarded with valuable paper products, such as certificates, money, or diplomas. If she is bad, she is punished with fines, bad grades, revoking licenses, etc.
As a human being, I support our system not because I desire rewards or because I'm afraid of punishment. As a human being, I cannot be trained or baited, nor will I bow down like a dog. I'm human, and I support our system only for the welfare to humanity.
As we plan our commencement, I would like us to think about the real reason why we worked hard towards higher education. Did we work hard for 4 years to have Mary Metz give us a piece of paper? Or did we stay here to learn from her leadership? Mary Metz has given us the most difficult lesson this week. She has taught us that anyone, no matter how strong, powerful, or empowered, anyone can buckle down under pressure.
The senior class must not buckle down under pressure. We cannot be guided by the immediate pleasure of good grades or a diploma. We must give honor to what the diploma stands for. We must give credence to the value of those grades. We must celebrate the birth of a new graduating class, whether or not the birth certificate is printed in time.
Yes, seniors, we shall celebrate. We shall walk tall and proud and give real meaning to a piece of paper called a diploma. Celebrating commencement with the full approval of President Metz or the trustees will be a true declaration of independence.
Alum, and the Mills Quarterly.
Well, let me just show them while you speak, Brad. Show them here's the campus in Oakland, California, of Mills College. The entire student body is, how shall we say, on strike. Yes.
The published statistic in February was that 78% of the alumni were against this happening.
Right.
We want to see our money go to women's education in women's colleges. We want it to be Mills.
Yes.
I'm a graduate of Mills also. I give a generous gift every year. I actively recruit for the college. I'm now assessing those options. How can I be sure that Mills will remain a special place for women in a co-educational atmosphere?
I'm an alumna of Mills College as well. I graduated in the mid-'70s, and I am probably one of the few alumni that thinks that this decision, although hard, was a good one. And I ultimately feel there's some support.
Yeah, you did about a 2 on the applause meter.
Well, no. I mean, I want to ask a question, and in some ways, the young man earlier who said that it's obvious that women can't live without men, I'm also addressing it to him as well. Do you think, or has it been considered at any time during your protest, that possibly coeducation could be a means of socializing men as well as women in such a way that you can somehow diminish the fear and loathing that goes on in some of the interactions between men on too many occasions? Have you thought of possibly some of the positive aspects of this? I will support Mills no matter what it does. I went to it not just because it was a women's college, but because it is a good college. I came from the East Coast. I went to the West Coast to go to it. Again, the women's issue was not a big deal to me. It still isn't.
I'm sorry, I don't know what's your name, but I have a question to ask you back. Tell me how we can have a gender-balanced curriculum when society says everything against women, that we're second-rate
And I'm saying that that's the challenge before Mills. I'm saying that Mills is strong enough to take that on and to deal with it in a positive way, to make a contribution to society that is much more effective than you can as a single-sex education in the 90s. I think the single-sex education was important at one point. I don't know that it's all that valuable now. I think it is obsolete.
This isn't about aesthetics, as I'm sure you understand. I graduated in '88 from Mills, and this is about creating women who are able to deal in the 1990s. And being a 24-year-old woman, hi, we've spoken before, I can speak to the fact that a woman's education is valid and valuable in the 1990s. Excuse me? Yes, it is, but women deserve the choice. No, because it's not about excluding men.
Well, he can't hear him. What? Did you let just stand?
The point that I'd like to make. Yes, if the career that he wishes to pursue, the best professors are at a women's college, shouldn't he be allowed to get the best education?
It's not about education. There are good professors at Harvard and there are good professors at coeducational institutions around the country. It's about environment where women can grow, they can test their abilities, and they can come out into the world able to say, you must take me seriously.
Well, Dr. Metz, president of Mills College, you've been most patient. You must want to say something. Please let me give you that chance.
Well, I want to say bravo to all the positive comments about women's colleges. I agree with them. I also want to reflect on the future of Mills because the decision has been made and Mills is going to be going forward as a coeducational college. I believe we can make a real contribution to American society by forging a new model of coeducation. We know it's going to be very difficult. The research has shown that it is hard to overcome the societal traits that we all have grown up with in the classroom, but the commitment at Mills is strong to have an affirmative environment for women, and I believe we can rise to that challenge.
To all Mill students and comrades in battle, these are some of the lovely things Mary is telling the press.
I feel like I'm living in a communist state.
I thought it was a feminist state.
I lost mostly before the decision was made.
Let's see what we can do about this. Does Mary have a conscience?
Women are disadvantaged in the classroom. Things have changed though, but the problems are not erased.
Basically what she said was that things have changed enough that we don't need a women's college.
We have not solved women's problems. It takes a women's college to go co-ed to make a model co-ed school. It will take a pioneering and progressive school to make a model co-ed school.
Okay, let's give up Mills.
I found my voice at Hood College, a women's college in Frederick, Maryland.
And lost it at Mills.
It's hard for students to understand now, but I have a lifelong commitment to women and women's colleges.
And we don't? She believes that
a phoenix will rise out of the ashes.
I hope it bites her in the ass.
We'll go on as a co-ed model.
She hopes that in 5 to 10 years, we will understand. Yeah, right. Get this. When asked about our turning our backs on her,
my integrity is more important than my popularity.
Business over students yet again.
Of course it hurt. All constituencies are at fault. Mills really taught us how to stand up and take the lead. You know, one of the mottos during the thing was to Mary Metz, who was president at the time. You taught us to stand up, and then you sat down.
Mary Metz was president at the time. I don't think she had any particular agenda to turning Mills from a women's college to a co-ed college. But it's just she and probably the board felt that it was the best step to keep the college economically viable. I was standing there when the president addressed the students, and she said she voted to go co-ed, and everybody turned her back on her. So they didn't see just how broken she was by that. I think a lot of students and strikers never really saw the whole story. Nobody worked harder to get the decision reversed than Mary Metz. Nobody put more on the line than Mary Metz. But the thing you have to recognize is that a movement like this needs a villain. One of the most vivid recollections I have is going to deliver something to her. I think it was a report or something. And she came out of her house and she just looked so defeated. I ended up giving her a hug, and I just remember thinking how small and frail she was. And that was really one of the moments where I saw the humanity of all people on all sides. And she had been so demonized at that point.
You know, Mary Metz was in many ways a good president. She could charm the birds off the trees, but she gets painted as this evil personification of everything bad. And she made the wrong decision, but she was not a bad person. But after making that decision, she couldn't stay.
Dear Miss Metz, congratulations. Mills College has confirmed every male suspicion of the feminist movement. Feminism is a one-way street. Women want what benefits them and are opposed to equality. Mills College proves it. It is patently obvious by the demonstrations of your student body, the performance of your alumni, and your governing body that the feminist movement is a farce without moral conviction. The true nature of the female composite is to search out advantage, capture it, and maintain it. The denial of equality that your institution stands for is as ugly and base as the Brooklyn murder of a boy because of race. As an educator, you show a new dimension in narrow-minded thinking and an ability to gravel your intestines beneath the belly of Ecuadorian viper. Your lack of intestinal fortitude is distressing.
Mill students shut the place down, blockaded buildings, set off car alarms. They attended rallies, not classes, believing perhaps that this was a fate they could change.
The students are also calling for a guarantee that anyone who participates in any of the protests here at the college won't be punished, won't be penalized. I just got to Washington Post. After an all-night strategy session, the students are taking action. This building is one of several on campus under their control. They're calling other women's colleges asking for their support. They've even faxed a message to Barbara Bush. The students are boycotting classes, even though finals begin next week. Believe that it is a place for women, and that the country can't do without a place for women. I have a granddaughter, I'd like her to come too.
We've discovered the ability to speak our own voices again.
How do you empower students? How do you help them find their voice? How do you create an educational environment in which people feel safe to speak, safe to have a different opinion?
I handed off the trustees' home addresses to the student leaders during the strike, and I was nervous that they would do something bad with it, but they didn't. They were actually really good about it. They went to Warren Hellman's office in San Francisco, and they sat in and protested there, but they never harassed the trustees at their homes.
The students were very smart about finding allies. That was a very smart move on their part because not alienating the faculty and not alienating the staff, I think, contributed greatly to their success. How much? Who knows?
The other thing that was impressive was the staff, because they were at risk for losing their jobs. The administration told them first, don't wear the color yellow, because that was the strike color, and second, don't assemble. Can you imagine telling people, don't assemble and don't ever vote on anything?
At the time, my work study was at the English Center for International Women, and they rented out space in Alderwood Hall or Alcatraz, and the director there really understood what we were doing, but she was also running a school. She was very polite and said, hey, I really support you, but can I get through the barricade to get some important papers? I mean, this is an institution for women, so we didn't want to do any harm. We wanted to work together.
Faculty have to think about what are we going to do with students who are missing exams? What are we going to do with finals? What are we going to do with grading, right? What do we do with graduation?
I remember being a little unsure how to deal with, students not coming to classes frequently. So I would spend extra time with them, in office hours, helping them catch up.
Some faculty started to go to the student organizers and say, hey, we'd like to help, what can we do?
The staff was wonderful. They delivered things like toilet paper to the student leaders who were barricading the buildings. The painter for the campus brought them donuts, he was feeding the students. And the students, they would be doing assignments and handing things in, but they were manning the barricades. They had childcare set up in the student union for students who had children who wanted to do their time on the barricades but needed childcare.
So we had this whole system marked out, where people could sign up for shifts where they would be on campus, and if you had staff and faculty bring food and water and ice and tents and sleeping bags. It was a pretty amazing time. The oval out there got turned into like a big camping ground, and the whole campus shut down. There were no classes. And there was some faculty who thought, oh, this is Mills activism at its finest, but it's going to blow over. No, not this time. Not this time.
Gentlemen, as a returning student who is interested in attending school part-time, I am angered by the board's decision to admit men rather than accommodate me and the thousands of women like me. Mills is expensive, but Mills was special. If I want to sit in a class with men, I can certainly do it far more economically elsewhere. I think that only those who have attended an all-women's school should have voted on this issue. All others should have recused themselves. The men on the board are guilty of destroying something they cannot understand and of robbing women of yet another irreplaceable resource. I hope your endowments dry up and are revoked. Mills with Men is just another hopelessly isolated, elitist institution. I am bitterly disappointed. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
The atmosphere? Well, it was surprisingly upbeat. I think the students were determined. The administration was totally flummoxed. But I thought the mood on campus was not jolly. But it wasn't gloomy either. The students were determined and they saw their determination through.
The energy on campus was just amazing. If you were a yellow beret, that meant that you were with the strike. So you have your faculty and staff who couldn't necessarily vocally say that they're with the strike. So they would just wear yellow hats.
It was definitely in the air. And again, the phrase, better dead than co-ed, just really sticks in my mind. They were serious, and I mean, it just meant so much to them.
The toughest part, God, it's hard to say. I think the toughest part was having to see what the girls had to do in order to get their point across. I mean, literally sleeping in sleeping bags. You know, and people would ask, why do they do that? Why do they have to be so radical? And I would say, if you had men protesting, would you be so critical? No. Would you call them crybabies? No. They're protesting and standing up for their rights.
I'd go to work and a lot of the guys knew that my daughter was at that school, and they'd say, what are they crying about? And I'd have to talk to them and tell them, you know, this is the real story. You don't know the whole story.
Well, I got into a big fight with my roommate who graduated the year before in '89. Part of what was killing us was we would call homes, and most of the time we got people who were like, yeah, sure, whatever. But sometimes, or not infrequently, we got people who would say, I'm sick of those students I see on the news with their shave, because they were shaving their heads in protest, which I never really quite fully understood, but whatever. So I go home, and my roommate, she was this gorgeous woman. I mean, everybody said she looked like Phoebe Cates. She had been on campus helping with the protest, and she came home and she lifted her hair back, and she had done an undershave. I got so pissed, just irrationally pissed, because I'm like, first of all, you did a thing that doesn't really show, so you're not really committed to the cause. And second of all, this head shaving thing is actually making it way harder.
This is a letter to all you. We are coming. Just think, girls, no more dildos. We will be here next year, and you can us instead of yourselves. We shall see you soon. We are coming. We are coming. Put away your dildos, girls, and get some real and you will all love it, because you cannot manage money. We are coming now. See you, the boys of 90.
Top 10 reasons to continue the strike. 10. To hear what other eloquent statements Frank Tatoma has to say to his followers. 9. To get enough donations to buy Warren Hellman a real suit for the press conference where he reverses the decision. 8. So we can list TV and radio experience on our resumes. 7. So we can get sick from all the junk food eaten. 6. to earn our private investigator's license. 5, to watch 30 half-asleep women in PJs screeching their cars to the security gate. 4, to rack our brains to come up with silly code names. 3, so we can watch Dave Johnson and Mike Rothman continue to make fools of themselves. 2, so the nation can know what we really look like in the morning. 1, to see if we can get Mary Metz's hair to move.
The Board of Trustees is supposed to meet tomorrow morning. The meeting place is a secret, but the trustees are expected to go public with a decision on the fate of Mills College by noon tomorrow. Reporting from the newsroom, I'm Sherry Hu, Mac, and Kate, back to you.
After 2 weeks of civil disobedience, blockading administration buildings, boycotting classes, and holding rallies, the students have now called off the strike. Some are still sleeping out on the campus lawn tonight, hoping that the Board of Trustees will reverse its decision to accept undergraduate men here. The students turned in fundraising proposals today, ways to raise enrollment, help solve the economic problems here. They say that the seniors want to graduate on Sunday, and the students say that they hope the board will see their calling off the strike as an act of faith.
Civil disobedience was not something that I took up as a name. It just seemed like the task at hand. It seemed like the first thing that we had to do. It's not. It may very well be the showiest thing that the Mills community does to impress the Board of Trustees, but it's not. It's just the first thing.
The Board of Trustees decided that they would hear a case for remaining women's colleges. So 3 staff, 3 faculty, 3 students, and 3 alumni were invited to comment. So we put together a staff proposal. What would the staff do around recruitment? What would we do around retention? What would we do to support the college?
In order to reverse this, we needed to come to the board with something tangible that affected the primary reasoning for going co-ed, which was lack of funds.
I didn't know whether it was going to succeed. It wasn't just because a lot of people cried that the decision was reversed, you know. Alumni, staff, faculty made specific commitments to take specific actions to increase enrollment.
Well, I certainly learned a lot. And it was my first experience as a board member, and it was a pretty traumatic event that transpired during that term, right? Particularly for those of us who were against the decision to go co-ed, so I certainly learned an enormous amount.
All of you have had a lot of banners for us all week. Here's one for you.
Absorbed by the students, and like a good-natured dad, he allowed himself to be bedecked with the symbols of the strike. Helen did get to say a few words, and he spoke not as though surrendering to the student strike, but as though he could finally embrace it.
Sometimes in your lifetime, you're involved in something that may not just change an institution, it can change the world. I think you've done it.
My favorite memories of the strike, I think everybody would agree, would be the day the trustees reversed the decision. You know, there was jubilation. Everybody was happy because it was like 16 days of the decision between to go home or to reverse the decision, and it was so amazing to win.
As we stood there waiting to hear, I was apprehensive.
But when it came, I thought, well, what else would they call this meeting for? And it was right up on the steps in front of the tea shop. And so I was not particularly surprised. I had no advance warning, and I wasn't told. And as I say, since I thought being a women's institution was our most distinctive feature, I thought keeping that most distinctive feature was a good thing. So if I hadn't, I might have left, but here we are, 30 years later. I'm still here.
Woo! I think it became a more cohesive campus after the decision was reversed. Part of the agreement with the Board of Trustees was that the faculty members would teach an additional course, and everybody signed on to that. And once the battle is over, everyone seemed to be pulling in the same direction. The students have spoken.
I mean, did you ever think we could accomplish what we accomplished? Because at first I didn't. I thought it was kind of a done deal. And it's amazing how it got turned around. And I think that might have been the reason for so much jubilation. And you know, I think we all thought we were just not going out quietly. Very pleasant, very exciting, jubilation and surprise.
The staff assembled and they voted against co-education. It took incredible courage for those people. I really felt like the staff were the heroes of the situation because they made their voices heard when they were told not to.
You know, the fall after the strike, our volleyball team went back east. We played at Wellesley College and we had a huge celebration for us because we were the sheroes of women's colleges. We then played at Smith College, Vassar College, and they were so excited. And oh my gosh, our students felt this incredible pride. I felt incredible pride for what we had done. And then we came back to campus and we were told not to talk about it, not celebrate it, like literally to our face.
Yeah, it was like a gag order, like no discussing it, just sweep it under the rug.
Here we are claiming that we're an institution for women leaders, but we're not inclusive. We're not including all women. The world has changed now, but they always tried to hide lesbian presence. It was just seen as something negative that would detract from our ability to recruit students.
Huge fear. There was just huge fear. Yeah. I think homophobia was huge. And admissions, because of the stereotype that every woman in women's college is lesbian. I mean, we were wanting to say, so what if we are? We're still great, strong women. They would not move past it.
Because that would continue the conversation about the homophobia. It would continue the conversation about racism, structural conditions, right? It would continue the conversations that had been opened up and exploded open during the strike. It would have continued it.
And so, to come back in the fall with this, interim administration, which was all about just keeping things down, they're thinking, how do you attract a president to this really problematic college?
I do remember that meeting we had with the president, and it's interesting, all of us were there. And we asked for that meeting because we knew it was the moment. And what we left with was this interim president who not only can't meet the moment, but is going to squash the moment, going to destroy the moment. And I remember we left feeling very defeated, like if we can't get the president on board in this moment, we're doomed.
We actually prolonged Mills staying women's college. We helped extend that for another 30 years. I think it'll hold the place of what you can do when you come together.
You'll laugh, but it taught me how to be an activist. I never thought I could do anything like that. We're taking 125 pickleball players to the city council meeting tonight, and I'm leading all this. I mean, I would have never known how to do that.
I was quite proud of my daughter and my wife, and I got more supportive myself. I never think about girls. I mean, I said girls, but Julie taught me, you girls aren't girls anymore. You are women, and my whole outlook into women really started to change at that point. I guess I grew up old school, but I remember I felt very supportive, and I grew into their cause.
Okay, so I can't promise you this is true or accurate, but in my memory, I have this story of Warren Hellman. Several years after the strike, he invited me just to talk, and he was in his high security office somewhere in San Francisco. and it was so secure that it was almost impossible to even get in the front door. It was one of those situations where, you have this elevator that goes up to a certain floor, and then there's another elevator that only goes to the upper floors. And so, most people can't get there. But somehow 2 women from Mills managed to make it through the first elevator all the way up to the top in his office. And he said that these women were so passionate, that they were so brilliant and intelligent to get through this labyrinth of tests. He said that he flipped right then.
I hope, actually, that those of us who will continue to say Mills and not whatever will keep that legacy alive, because you are a manifestation of that. You are a Mills woman, and you will always be a Mills woman, and your cohort will always be Mills women. A way to keep Mills College alive is in the women who benefited from it.